Good morning. This is Tiffany Popwell. I'm the head counselor at Milton High School, here to share the Rising Ninth Family Information Night presentation with you. If you were not able to make this, we do want to offer a good explanation of everything you're seeing in this presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your middle school counselor, or you can reach out to me if you have something that your middle school counselor has said that they can't help you with. So to start off our Rising Ninth night, we had our Milton Student Council sponsor come and share a little bit about Student Council and the importance of getting involved at Milton. Our Student Council, as shown in some of the photos here, is very involved. They're wonderful. They help us with so much as a counseling department. They'll come in and they'll host our new student breakfast so that we can really get students acclimated with other new students and then kind of meet people that are already at Milton. If you scan that QR code, our student council president has created this wonderful freshman survival guide that we provided with students this year, and I think they found very helpful. So if you have your students scan this QR code, they can have access to that information as well. Kind of look through that this semester and over the summer before they come to Milton in the fall. Just so you can get to know our counseling department, again, my name is Ms. Popwell. I'm the head counselor. I don't carry a caseload, but I do work with all of the dual enrollment students. I work with MTSS, do a lot of the grad coach duties, and then I take care of all of the administrative duties for our department. If your student has the last names A through C, they'll be placed with Ms. Lehman. If your student has the last name D through HOL, they'll be placed with Ms. Hoaglander. If your student has the last name HOM through MC, they will be with Ms. Bartley. Students with the last names MD through SAL have Miss Rhodes. And then students with the last names SAM through Z have Miss Wilson. The reason that we break up our student population by alphabet is so that your student can have the same counselor all 4 years of high school. And we find that to be an advantage because the student and the counselor can really form a relationship over the course of the 4 years. They'll have multiple meetings. And then by the time your student is a senior, they can, or the counselor can write them a really great letter of recommendation. We do have a full-time school social worker, Mr. Bentley. This is our first year having a full-time social worker, and it has been awesome. So if you have a student who has the pleasure of working with him or meeting with him when they get here, they are very lucky. Miss Michelle Height is our registrar. So if you have a student who is not currently enrolled at Milton, you need to go through her before you go to a counselor because the student needs to be enrolled. She takes care of all of the enrollment, and then the counselor can kind of come in to help support after that. Miss Amy Barr is in charge of records, and Miss Maria Echevarria is our bilingual liaison. So to get started with a little high school 101, the typical day at Milton has 7 class periods. That's 6 courses and then 1 lunch period. There are 5 minutes between classes so that your student can get where they need to go. And the school day runs from 8:20 to 3:30. Progress reports are distributed at 6 weeks and at 13 weeks. And then report cards, we don't really have report cards. We do semester grades. So those are earned in December and in May. And then Infinite Campus for parents and students, you can view grades from home at any time. You can also view your students' attendance. We highly encourage you to get your Infinite Campus account up and rolling so that you can stay on top of your students' grades. And then if you have issues or questions about their grades, you can reach out to their teachers. The high school grading scale is an A is 90 through 100, a B is an 80 through 89, C is a 70 through 79, and F is anything 0 to 69. If your student takes an honors or AP course while at Milton, those courses will receive 7 rigor points on the semester grade. I do want to shine some light on the difference between middle school grades and how they're calculated and high school grades and how they're calculated. Middle school grades are calculated using a system of averages. So for example, if your student is in 8th grade English and they get a 60 in the fall and they get an 80 for the spring, that will average out to a 70, so your student will pass the whole year of English. That is not the case once your student gets to high school. Each semester is independent and they are not averaged together. For example, when your student takes 9th grade English, if they got a 60 in the fall and an 80 in the spring, those are the courses that post to the transcript. And that means that your student earned credit for ninth lit B, which is the spring semester, and they did not earn credit for ninth lit A, which is the fall semester. So that means that your student would need to look into some kind of credit recovery to make up the failed credit, which is the first half of English. We do have 3 different types of courses that students can take at Milton. The first is in-person courses. Those are taken face-to-face. Students are not permitted to change an in-person course to online after spring registration or in the middle of the year. So if your student decides to take a course in person, your student is going to be in an in-person course. We do recommend that all ninth graders take all of their classes in person. Ninth grade is a very transitional year. Your student is getting used to an entirely new building, new students that are all brought together from various various middle schools. They are learning how to navigate 7 different classes and different teachers, different learning styles. It's just a very transitional year, and students perform better when they're face to face with a teacher that they can communicate with all the time and form a relationship with. If your student insists on taking a virtual class, we do offer classes through Fulton Virtual or Georgia Virtual. Regardless of which your student chooses, a student is not allowed to stay on campus for their online class. We don't have designated spaces in the building for students to take their online classes. So if they do take it online, if they have to be taken in blocks, either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, we can't place them in the middle. And your student needs to have transportation to either get here late in the morning so that they're home for their virtual class, or they need transportation to pick them up early because there is not a place in the building for them to sit and work on virtual. We find that it results in a lot of behavior and safety issues if we have a lot of students that are floating around. Milton has one of the highest virtual enrollments out of all of the high schools in the county. So we cannot have 200 students hanging out in the building any period of the day that don't have a designated classroom. I do get lots of questions on what the difference between Fulton Virtual and Georgia Virtual is. And the best way that I can explain it is that Fulton Virtual is the same content. You are going to be learning the same material, whichever school you go to, but Fulton Virtual is self-paced, but it has fewer deadlines throughout the semester. And with fewer deadlines means that there are fewer requirements for students to stay on track throughout. And we find that a lot of students, if they're not responsible, will push off this class in a kind of out of sight, out of mind attitude. And there's a higher likelihood for procrastination. We see a lot of students come in the last month of the semester completely freaking out that they haven't done anything for their online class and that the teacher won't eliminate any work for them. A student is responsible for completing the entire semester's worth of work throughout the semester. And if they wait till the last minute, they will panic, statistically earn lower grades if they're not on top of their coursework. That is something the kids like because they don't have a lot of deadlines. But again, it really does result in a lot of stress if your student is not good at self-pacing. For GABs, same situation. They can't stay on campus. It has to be at the beginning or end of the day. It's self-paced, but it has more periodic deadlines that help keep students on track to finish the coursework. This is the least popular option for students because they have deadlines every 2 or 3 weeks, and it keeps them on track. They have to work on that online class. It can't be an out of sight, out of mind activity for them. Statistically, students will earn higher grades in GABs because there's more structured pacing. If your student is going to take a virtual class, please pick the right method for them. Again, counselors recommend that students in ninth grade will take all of their classes in person, but I understand that, there are life circumstances and things that don't involve us that influence your decision. So those are good pieces of information to know to help you make your decision. For graduation requirements, those are on the slide. We also have them posted on the Milton website, so you can see how many different types of credits your student needs to get the 23 required credits to graduate. One thing that's a little bit different is there are classes that are only a semester long. For example, personal fitness is only 1 semester and health is only 1 semester. They each are worth 0.5 credit. Your year-long credits or courses are going to earn you 1 full credit. Again, you can fail half of it, so then you can only earn half of a credit, but your intro to healthcare, your ninth lit, your algebra 1, your biology, your physical science. Those are year-long courses that if you pass both halves, you will get 1 full credit. There is a personal fitness waiver that's available on the counseling website if you would like more information on that. And then we do have 4 courses that have an EOC that's worth 20% of the final grade. Now that COVID is over, they have gone back to the typical percentages for how much weight that holds. So when your students take Algebra 1 or biology or US history or 11th American Lit, they will have an EOC worth 20% of the final grade at the end of that course in the spring. So let's say your student does find them in a position that they failed either half of a credit or a full credit, and they're not quite sure what to do. Well, a student can still move to 10th grade with only 5 credits. They can move to 11th grade with only 11 credits. And they can move to 12th grade with 17 credits. Credit recovery is what we call making up a failed credit. They're recovering a lost or failed credit. Students can do face-to-face summer school. We typically get summer school information in late March, early April, and how to sign up for that. Students can take Fulton virtual. Students can take Georgia virtual. And then we do have a program that is specifically for credit recovery called Fulton Virtual Credit Recovery. Ms. Bendel is our virtual facilitator of that. The link to sign up for a credit recovery course is on the counseling website so that students can access it easily. I think the biggest piece to understand is that not every course is offered on credit recovery. So if your student fails Intro to Healthcare, they're not going to find that on credit recovery. On the flip side, Intro to Healthcare is not a graduation requirement. So with that little bit of wiggle room, your student could just leave that failed credit. The only thing that happens is, the failed grade stays on the transcript. It impacts the GPA. If you don't recover it, then you have no really good grade going in to offset that failing grade, but that's a total personal choice. Students are required to recover credits that are required for graduation, obviously, like your Algebra 1, and so on. So middle school credits for high school. What happens when I accept high school credits in 8th grade? You will have a decision at the end of this year if your student is currently taking a class for high school credit to either accept those credits or to deny those credits. If you accept those credits, this will start your high school GPA. Please keep in mind that middle school grades are not included in the HOPE GPA, and they also do not get included as HOPE rigor courses. So that is, even if you do get those grades, they're not going to count for HOPE. And just remember that HOPE is a scholarship program. So the HOPE GPA is purely just a scholarship eligibility GPA. You don't send your HOPE GPA to colleges for college admission. Grades and credits are awarded or denied by the family, when the student completes 8th grade. Students cannot repeat the courses if they already have credit. For example, if you accepted credit for 9th lit in 8th grade, you cannot take it again to try and get a higher grade. Once you have that course number on your transcript, you cannot repeat it unless you failed it, and it still has a different course number because it becomes a recovery course. You do want to keep an eye on your student's transcript at the end of the summer to make sure that your credits were posted properly. For example, if you decide to bring your Spanish 1 credit and then you go to check your student's transcript at the end of the summer and you don't see it there, that's something that you would need to look into. If your student takes a summer class and at the end of the summer you don't see that Fulton virtual or Georgia virtual class post, that's something you want to look into. So keep a close eye on that, because before you get to us, we're not quite sure what you're signing up for, what you're taking. So it's hard for us to go back and tell you, hey, something is missing, because we're not the ones that are signing you up for those things. And the most important piece is that whatever you decide, whether that's accepting the credit or denying the credit, will stand. You cannot come in junior year and say, hey, I actually want to bring in those extra middle school classes because I think it's going to boost my GPA. And you also can't say, hey, I actually want to drop those because I think it's going to boost my GPA. You need to make a final decision, and it is going to stand. That's something that we hold consistent across all middle schools. And since we are sharing this explicitly with everyone, we are going to hold you to that. So just an idea of the registration timeline for this school year. This week, students having their middle school teachers enter academic course recommendations, and students are working on their elective forms. Make sure that you turn your elective form back by the time designated at your middle school. January 31st, the Milton High School registration team will be at Northwestern to help enter those elective choices. On February 2nd, our registration team will be at Elkins Point Middle School to enter those electives. On February 6th, your student will receive a course verification form. The high school is going to give those to the middle school for distribution. So your student's going to receive those from the middle school. And then those forms are due to the middle school counselors by February 14th. There are no additional changes beyond this point. This is also your opportunity to where if you want your student in a virtual course, they have to sign up on that verification form. We don't allow students to sign up for online classes at the beginning of the school year or in the middle of the school year. So when you're selecting your courses for the 23-24 year, you'll want to make sure that in your core classes, teachers are making those recommendations, and then electives, students are making those choices. Students are choosing 2 credits worth of electives every year, but as a 9th grader, since there is no required social studies class, 9th graders actually get to choose 3. Please have your students select additional options as alternates, because sometimes for unforeseeable circumstances keep us from being able to give your student every class they want. For example, if their chorus class is only offered at the same time as the art class they want, they're going to have to pick one over the other. It's not because we don't have enough seats, it's because it's only offered one time of day. And those are the kind of reasons why your student might not get their first pick. All of these total 6 classes for the semester, because remember, they have 6 academic classes and then they have 1 lunch period. Some factors to consider are graduation requirements, prerequisite courses. For example, in order to take Ceramics 1, you have to take Intro to Art first, and then rigor requirements. If you have any questions regarding course selection, please direct these to your middle school counselor. Are you interested in honors? So if you are a student or parent who's interested in signing your student up for an honors class or waiving up into an honors class, you want to consider these things. For example, does your student have the ability to grasp concepts and new concepts at a rigorous pace without intervention? Can your student advocate for himself or herself if they're struggling with material? Is your student independent? Is your student self-motivated? Does your student complete their homework independently and thoroughly in an appropriate amount of time? Does your student make efficient and effective use of class time? And does your student work effectively with others? That note in red is that a high grade in a class does not always indicate that your student belongs in an honors or AP class. Maturity plays a huge role in whether or not a student is ready for an honors class. For example, some of our honors classes work with texts that might require more maturity than the on level, and we have a higher expectation for those students to be able to work on a more mature level. So be honest with yourself and have your student be honest with themselves about, do I belong in this class? Am I ready to put forward the work and show that I can be an honor student? So when your student is selecting electives on their elective form at the middle school, it looks something like this. This is not the full elective form. This is just a snippet of a piece of it. But I want you to see these little boxes on the side. Your student is going to use the entire sheet and rank their elective choices, their top electives 1 through 5. 1 being like the most, I really, really want this class, and 5 still being a class they want, it's just 5th on their list. So due to seniority and seat count, a lot of 9th graders don't get their top choices, but they can take them later in high school. Again, a lot of the reason why a student might not get their first choice is because there is a schedule conflict with another class that they really want. Be prepared for any of your choices 1 through 5 to be placed on your schedule. So only rank classes that you are okay with getting. You might get your number 5 class, and that's for no reason other than scheduling conflicts. So we would hate for your number 5 class to be something you actually don't want to take because it might be in your schedule. And remember that you're ranking 1 through 5 on the entire form. You are not ranking 1 through 5 per category. So on that note, we want to make sure, and you should make sure, that you're creating a balanced schedule. When selecting instructional levels, for example, on level, honors, AP, or dual enrollment, you want to look at the totality of the schedule. And for best results, you want to follow the teacher recommendations. You have to remember teachers spend about 30 hours a week with your student, if not more, and they see how your student works with others. They see if your student does their work. They see if your student pays attention or if they're engaged or if they're thinking critically. The teachers make recommendations based off of all the time and knowledge that they've spent and gained from your student. And then we want you to be honest with yourself. Consider your work ethic. How much time can you contribute to studying? How well do you work under academic pressure? What are your outside commitments? Do you play multiple sports? Do you like to volunteer? Do you have a part-time job, or do you have to be home to help babysit your siblings in the afternoon? Those are all things to be considered. We have no doubt that your student can do well in the one honors or one AP class, but when you multiply that by 6, it can become an unbearingly heavy academic workload. And we do see students in this situation all the time. And we do share every year to please be mindful that you're not loading down your plate too much, because as the year starts, we have very little wiggle room to kind of rescue your student out of a class that's too much for them. So we want you to make an educated decision beforehand so that you just work comfortably in an environment where you can be successful. Make sure you're evaluating time management, what you can handle, and then mental health and overall wellness should be considered when making your final decision. Having a mental breakdown because you're so stressed out does not do anyone good. As long as you are taking a healthy mix of rigorous courses and you're getting involved inside school and outside of school, you will be great. Colleges love a well-rounded student. Colleges know that your student is paying to go study there. So having good grades in all of the hardest classes is not always the best indicator that your student is a good fit for the college. They want to see, is your student started a club? How did they spend their time? Did they volunteer? Like, your student is a lot more than just the academics. We have linked multiple resources for you. We have our course catalogs and resources here. This is the Milton course catalog. Our registration 101 sessions are really helpful. Those were presented the week before last, and those are per grade level. So you'll want to watch the Rising Ninth one. It's on the counseling website, and scroll down the homepage, you will see it. We have the Fulton virtual course catalog, the Georgia virtual course catalog. If your student is thinking about taking AP courses later on down the road, you can go ahead and start looking at those fact sheets. They're in the process of being updated, but they should be completely updated by February 6th when your student receives the verification form. If your student is interested in sports or clubs, we've linked those pages where you can find all of the sports we offer and their sponsors and contact. And then the Milton Counseling website is one of our favorite resources that we like to share because we've worked to really provide you with a lot of information there. The next few slides are just about various electives, just different information. We did have guest speakers at the live parent night, so I'm going to kind of breeze through some of these, mostly because I don't have a lot to offer as far as extra information. It's just going to be what's on the slide. These were presented by those department chairs. So we do have gifted services, otherwise known as TAG, talented and gifted, in high school. If your student has ever been tested and identified as gifted, they will continue as gifted in high school. There are additional opportunities for enrichment for gifted students at Milton, including internships, directed study, seminars, field trips, and more. We do have a TAG parent meeting in the fall during open house, so you can attend that to learn about those opportunities. And then there is a TAG website that you can also visit to learn about those opportunities. Special education in high school. If your student has an IEP, a matriculation meeting will be scheduled by your middle school staff and will include the Milton staff. The team will determine which services your student will require in high school, and this will help guide in choosing classes for 9th grade. A transition plan will also be developed to aid in keeping your student on track for graduation and help them plan for post-secondary education, training, and employment. And if you have any additional questions or need further assistance, you can reach out to our IST, Cheryl Jones. That's her phone number and her email listed. If your student has an IEP or is in special education, that is your point of contact for now. For PE and health, to graduate from Milton, students are required to take personal fitness and health. Freshman students that play football should not take physical conditioning the first semester. Coach Dell shared that the freshman students have scheduled lifting outside of the school day, so there's no point in taking weight training because they're already lifting weights outside of the school day. So there's really no need for them to lift weights twice a day. Freshman students take general health, personal fitness, or another PE elective if interested. Some of the PE and health electives we offer at Milton are weight training, physical conditioning is football only, intro to rec games, general PE 1, intro to team sports. This year it's going to be a class that only plays basketball. And then intro to lifetime sports, this will be a class that only plays soccer. And then outdoor education, we're hoping to get back on there. For fine arts, Mr. Bowers presented a ton of information, and our CERC program performed. So that was really wonderful to see the arts at work. But for band, an audition is not required if you previously played an instrument. Those interested in the advanced performing band ensemble, the materials are distributed to the middle school in March. You can email director@miltonband.org with any questions about band. If you're interested in chorus, the placement exams will occur March 20th through 23rd. Mr. Bowers will go to Northwestern and Elkins Point to offer placement exams on March 21st and 22nd. You can email Mr. Bowers at bowers@miltonchorus.com with any questions related to the placement exams. You can also visit their chorus website. For orchestra, an audition is required for Sinfonia and chamber orchestra. For concert orchestra, no audition is required for ninth graders coming from the middle school orchestra. You can email cummingsas@fultonschools.org with any questions. You can also visit their website in February. For theater, advanced drama auditions are March 21st through the 22nd. You're required to prepare a 1 to 2 minute monologue from a published play or musical. It cannot be from TV or movies. You can also prepare a song from a published musical, which it looks like that was a duplicate. Bring an accompaniment track without vocals. Email gordonh@fultonschools.org to secure an audition slot. CERC auditions are March 29th through 30th. There's no sign up necessary. Audition registration begins after school starting at 4 p.m. and runs until 7:45 p.m. Participants should plan to stay the entire length of the night and be available for a possible callback the next day. If you have questions, you can email garrett.h@fultonschools.org. And lastly, we offer a full array of visual art classes, including 2D, 3D, graphic design, and digital design. Email brown.drew@fultonschools.org with questions about placement. Dr. Marsh came and shared information about world language. Students interested in attending a four-year college are required to take 2 consecutive years of the same world language. So at some point, if you want your student to go to a four-year college, they're going to be in a world language class. We offer French, Japanese, Latin, and Spanish. We offer all 4 of those courses from levels 1 through AP, and levels 2 through 4 have on-level and honors sections. If you're not sure which one your student belongs in, if your student is an on-level, they are using 75% of the target language for instruction. Activities vary per level, but all of them practice in speaking, writing, and listening, and students are highly encouraged to communicate in the target language if you're in an on-level class. If your student is in an honors class, they are going to be using 90% of the time the target language for instruction. Students are expected to communicate in the target language. There is more in-depth work from the on-level courses. It is the same curriculum, but in the way that if your student is in Spanish 2 on level, and they're struggling, the teacher will offer them help in English and in Spanish. But if your student is in Spanish 2 honors, that teacher is more than likely going to be offering them help in Spanish. And that can be overwhelming for a student because that's just the expectation of honors, is to be communicating in the target language 90% of the time. As far as course placement, again, I'm going to kind of harp on trusting the teacher recommendation. Your teachers spend a ton of time with your students, and they strive to place them in a course that appropriately challenges them, but still allows them to be successful. Placement in Spanish for the native speakers course is determined by a short placement test and teacher recommendation. The Spanish for native speakers course is designed to address the unique needs of native speakers. It will help them advance their language skills and cultural knowledge. Students placed in this course are too advanced for the non-native speaker track, and they will not benefit from it. Students and parents must contact the teacher, not the counselor, if they feel the student should be placed differently. And lastly, all languages have language clubs and honor society. French and Japanese have exchange programs. We host students in Milton families, and Milton students go there during the summer. All languages participate in numerous county, state, and national competitions, including GHP, national tests, Fulton Forum, etc. Latin competes in 10 or more contests each year. All languages offer the International Skills Diploma Seal to its seniors, and all languages offer the Biliteracy Seal to its seniors. As far as career tech electives, all of these pathways are on page 5 of the Milton course catalog. So I'm not going to read through them, but we do have a healthcare science pathway, an AV tech pathway, business, computer science, engineering, law enforcement, nutrition and food science, and then teaching as a profession. If you want in-depth explanations about those courses, those are located again in the course catalog. If at any point you see these or vice versa, that means that these classes are offered interchangeably. So for example, we only have one teacher who teaches the law enforcement. She can't teach enough sections for everyone to get the full pathway. So one year we'll offer forensic science, the next year we'll offer criminal justice, the next year we'll offer forensic science, and so on, so that your student can get all 3 of the classes to finish the pathway before they graduate, and they can take them with the same teacher. It's the same for this food science and food for life class. It is the same for our legal environment of business and entrepreneurship class. We want to encourage you to stay connected with Milton Counseling. Our Instagram is super active. We post these presentations to our YouTube channel for easy access. And then lastly, we have a Twitter where we share a lot of the same information that we do on Instagram. Again, we're going to kind of promote our counseling website because there are a ton of helpful, informative options on there for you to read through if you're anxious about coming to high school, or if you're curious and you just want to take in as much information as you can do that. I do want to reiterate, don't overwhelm yourself with 4-year planning right now. All of those things happen while your student is in high school, and your student is going to change. Their interests are going to change. They are going to grow, and so it's very difficult to plan 4 years worth of 6 classes each year and expect your student to still be interested in that in 4 years. Like, you just have no idea what they're going to be like. So, plan for 9th and 10th grade, but I wouldn't focus so much on stressing with the 11th and 12th. 4-year planning is nice if you want to squeeze in APs and things, but a lot of times, things change. And that concludes our presentation. I hope that this was helpful. Again, if you have questions, the default would be to go to your middle school counselor, but I will be the point of contact as far as helping input these electives and for the rising 9th graders. And then I will be processing all of the verification changes for the rising 9th graders. So my name is Tiffany Popwell, head counselor Milton. My email is popwellt@fultonschools.org. I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you have a great day.